all of that being said, we all know you're against it. You probably would be against it, you're Democrats. But you're going up against what may be quite possibly very strong chance, a supermajority. How would you, besides walking out, which does the women now in Georgia no good because they walked out, great, photo op, but at the end of the day, the law still passed. So how would you address issues like that you are so strongly against, but the supermajority wants to pass? Again, how would you work with that? I mean, how do you represent your constituents in that situation, Mr. Mayor?
Well, you have to be persuasive. You have to get your point across and say, hey, what you all are doing is wrong. Take for example my wife, and I explain it and I walk them through it. So being able to, reach out and touch them, and I do it all the time when I go before a jury and I've shown that my client's been injured, and then the first thing that pops in their mind, oh, they're not injured, I can't see anything broke and things of that nature. So now I have to convince 12 people to award my client, and it could be in a conservative venue. He's like, oh, I'm not giving them anything. But as more as you talk to them and they get a chance to, see your client, you have to persuade people. And so my background as being an attorney, I think I could be effective to saying, hey, look, what you're doing is wrong, listen to me, and they will hear me out.
Okay, Ms. Pritchard.
I feel that you have to work with the other party. You have to not be defensive with them on these issues, but build these coalitions explaining that there's certain things that just don't make sense. And if they do not agree, and well, first of all, I want to start off by saying I really feel like it is a supermajority right now, because what happened in this last legislative session, I believe we only got one thing to pass.
And that was charter schools.
Yeah, I mean we had ridiculous legislation. We had a mattress bill, just junk. So basically, how you combat that right now, what we all can do is you have to vote these people out, and you have to be vocal and speak the truth to the people. That even if you are for the other party, you have to realize that this doesn't make sense. So we have to get people more involved. Even as an example, during redistricting, one of the senators, Senator Gail Davenport, they were trying to redistrict an area in her district, and she bought 45 people, a lady in a wheelchair with an oxygen tank, to testify. When you do dramatic things like that and involve the people, when the other party ignores it, it's a blatant ignorance. And these are the type of things that have to be published. These are the type of things that have to go in the news. Oh, the lady came in a wheelchair with an oxygen tank. She brought 45 people in. How can you ignore the testimony of all 45 people on the public record? So it's going to take a lot, and it's a lot of hard work, but it's what we have to do in order to get things done at the Capitol.
Mr. Copeland?
I'm a strong Democrat. I'm a strong Democrat, and people in this room know that. Spent years working with the state party. But the biggest thing that people have to realize is when they get down there, whether they're Republican, Independent, you have to have an understanding of how to work with people. It doesn't matter what, how they identify themselves. You have to be able to talk to individuals and express why legislation is bad, why it's good, and how you get them to vote, in the manner you'd like them to vote. Particularly with this legislation, I don't see that it's gonna last long. There were many Republicans that spoke out against the legislation. There was a woman legislator that on the night that it passed, she cried and she contemplated. She made it public. She contemplated switching parties because this legislation was horrible. So with that being said, I don't think it's going to last that long. I think we'll see maybe a reversal in the next few years. And as we work at the state party to turn Georgia blue again, that's going to be one of the first things we do to reverse.
Questions? Even if you know who your candidate is, you may have a question specific to your candidate. Feel free to ask that question.
Please raise your hand.
All right, by show. Someone want to ask a question of the candidates? You guys don't really.
Okay. Go ahead in the back.
You guys don't really train your team well.
I'll ask.
You need to train your team better.
I've had this conversation with Mr. Mabry. There's such a disconnect between the people of District 63 and the state capitol. How do you plan to bridge that gap and to combat, I guess, voter apathy. July 31st is just around the corner. So how do you plan to combat?
Good question, that's for everybody. Okay, so we'll start with TJ and work our way across.
Well, I'll personally say I don't think that there was a disconnect with District 63 and the state capitol. District 63 has had some great representation with Roberta Abdul-Salam, with Virgil Flood, which is a great legislator, and with Representative Baker. I mean, and of course our senator over there. And Darrell Jordan, of course. So, we've had great representation all throughout the district, and I don't think that there was a disconnect. I do think that we as individuals and as a state party need to do a better job of informing people about what's going on under the Gold Dome. That's our job to do, and I think we should all do a better job of that, but I don't think that there's a disconnect between individuals in the legislature because of the great representation that we've had all throughout that district.
Ms. Pritchett?
I would agree that I do not think that there is a disconnect with the people in the Capitol. I have a great relationship with my state representative, Virgil Flood, my Senator Donzella James, and they're always accessible and available. What I think that the people perceive as a disconnect is sometimes on the local level, there is more of a disconnect because there's so many strained issues, so many difficult issues, and people's frustration on the same issue, asking the same thing, and not seeing things happen. They tend to think that that comes from the state, and I don't think that it does. So we just have to stay in touch with the people. We have to be visible, accessible to the people.
Mr. Maven?
Good points all across the board. And I would just add, perception is a big point. And that was one goal that I had, and I was like, hey, what is it here that we need? And of course, it would have been cheaper not to have, a headquarters in the district with a big sign, but the reason for it is that way when people see it, say, oh, I had that issue, I meant to call, let me stop in while I was going to the grocery store. So having that perception that you're always there and you're always around, I think it sort of bridges that connect where people don't have that feeling when really they've been getting, what's been needed, from all the state senators and state representatives for that area. But I think it's just doing things a little bit different, just saying, hey, just have that office there where at night they can see it, during the day they can see it, and they say, okay, they're there, and it just gives them another option.
Okay, hold on one second.
Can I just add one more thing? I think also in terms of perception that most people do not know that the first part is most people do not know who their state representative is, who their senators are. They don't know what district they live in. They don't know where their voter poll is. So it's an issue that in this campaign, we have to educate.